What's up, everybody? Well, I got another interesting video for you guys today, and today I noticed there was a benchmarking tool for Black Myth Wukong, and I figured, well, why don't we try it out on the weakest system? Basically, we're gonna start on the Steam Deck, which was kind of a little annoying to even get working, if I'm honest. Now, it didn't even show up when I went to the page for the game, like on that. Ooh, swallowed some spit there. Sorry about that. Anyway, so tried to just go download, but unfortunately, it wasn't showing up. You could see where it says benchmarking tool, but there was nothing to click on, nothing to download. So I was like, well, what the hell? So then I thought, okay, it's probably just big picture mode being lame. So let's just go to desktop mode and try to launch it from there. And that worked. I was able to just click download install, and then I went to go launch it just to put it in the recent games. Because a lot of times I'll do something in desktop mode, and then if I don't launch it, it won't even show up like in the recent stuff. So I launched it real quick, tried that, and it was like, oh, nope. It just sits there and says launching forever. So then I was like, okay, well, let's at least try to do that Proton GE thing. So I went and downloaded the newest one, which was a 911, and then it launched. So after it launched, it showed up in the big picture mode. So here we are. So that's just a little FYI for anybody who wants to download this and try different settings, because in this video, obviously, if I tried every conceivable setting on every single computer in this video would be like an hour long. But we're just gonna go in here, at least on the Steam Deck mini PC and stuff, we're just gonna try the lowest settings with like FSR and FrameGen's help, if we can use either of those things. On the Steam Deck anyway, I'm pretty sure we can on everything else. But then once we get to the Asus G15 Advantage, then I'm just gonna sit there and see what I can get and just try and get a decent average in the benchmark. Since it's a benchmark, I can just sit there and try a billion things before I show you guys the result. So I'll just sit there and try to get the best I can get, even if I have to use FSR and all that stuff. And then when the actual game comes out, then I'll try stuff like each individual computer will try maybe ray tracing and all that good stuff. But for now, I'm just gonna try to get it running at a decent average frame rate on everything to be playable on everything. That's the plan for the video anyway, so sorry about the long intro, but I figured I should explain what's going on, otherwise people are gonna click on the video and go, what the fuck is this? I mean, most people probably figure out, oh, he's just benchmarking the game, but I just wanted everybody to know. So, enough blabbing. I'm gonna go get this hooked up to the capture computer so we can go and try it out and see what kind of, well, if it can even launch and run. It might just crash. It ran the game, but I didn't actually run the benchmark. So as soon as I try to run the benchmark, it might just go and just crash on me, who knows? Or brick the whole system and freeze it. That's happened to me on a few games that were too much for it. But hey, let's stop blabbing and let's go find out what it does and what all the rest of the systems do. We're gonna do Steam Deck all the way up to TV PC. So let's go.
All right, so here's the settings we're going to use on the Steam Deck here. I pretty much just went into the graphics settings and hit recommended settings. Apply recommended settings, and then this is what it gave me. And all right, that's pretty much that for the settings. So now let's let the benchmark run and we'll see what it gets. All right, benchmark's all done. And it averaged 45, got a max of 52, a minimum of 39, and I guess a low fifth, which is a different one for me. I'm not used to seeing that one there, but got 41 there. I guess it can't read the RAM used since this is Linux and all that stuff. And yeah, apparently this thing uses 6 gigs. That's a pretty good limit, though, for something that's got 16 gigs of VRAM for 720p screen-ish. Well, it's 800p screen, but anyway. So that's pretty much that. Not too bad, but that was with FrameGen on. So without FrameGen, it might not be so playable. I'll have to test that out when the game actually comes out. But for now, on to the Ally. Now, here's the settings we're going to run first on the Ally. You only get borderless or windowed, so I chose borderless. No motion blur, 1080p base, but then I hit apply recommended, and it wanted to do 67% and have everything on low. So that's what we did. Obviously, I'll just test it out the normal way, where I put everything on high, if I can, when the game actually comes out, and do the normal, 1080p high, 900p medium, and 720p low. And just see how that is. Probably still have to use FSR, but I'll probably try without FrameGen. We'll see how it goes. Well, here's what it got when the benchmark is all done. 64 average, max of 72, a minimum of 53, and a low fifth of 59. And apparently used 3.9 gigs of VRAM out of the 8 that it's got allotted. I don't know why it says there's only 16 gigs of RAM, but maybe it's taking in consideration that I took 8 out of the 24. But anyway, now we can go ahead and tone her down to 900p and see how that one handles it. All right, now for 900p. Everything else on this page I left alone. but I wanted to show you the base resolution is now 900p. Now it still wants to run the same 67%. I think I'll probably try to maybe do this stuff native if I can, but it probably needs FSR. Well, we'll see when the game comes out. We'll test a bunch of different things out and see what's what. But in any case, now let's go see how 900p does in the benchmark. All right, well, we averaged very similar. This time we got 76, a max of 86, and a minimum of 57, with a low fifth of 69. Nice. Total VRAM used 3.8. And yeah, so very, very similar results. But in any case, now we can go ahead and try 720p out and see if that actually makes any difference. But they all might end up being very similar. But hey, that's why we run these. We'll know. Now here's 720p settings. Basically, that's all I changed on here was the base resolution. And then I came on over to the graphics tab and just hit apply recommended again, which is basically the same old, same old. So I really didn't even need to do that, but I just was curious if it was going to change depending on the resolution or not. But it must just look at like your processor RAM and all that stuff. Anyway, now let's go see if it made a difference or not. Well, that certainly made a difference. We got 94 average this time, a max of 108, and a minimum of 73 with a low fifth of 86, with the same 3.8 gigs of VRAM used. So, not too bad. But again, that's with FrameGen and FSR on, so that's kind of like the best you could possibly hope for, really. I mean, unless you really tone down the resolution even lower than 66. But in any case, now we can move on to the little FIREBAT mini PC and see how that does. But if I remember correctly, I think that thing's VRAM limit of 4 gigs got in the way for this game. Alright, so here's the settings we're going to try to run. 1080p and whatnot. No motion blur. Now, when I hit applied recommended, it put this all the way down to 33. So I might not do the apply on every single one. But that's probably the only chance it has at trying to do 1080p, since it only has 4 gigs of VRAM for whatever reason, even though I told it to do 8 in BIOS. So I don't know what its deal is, but let's go see how it does anyway. Well, the benchmark's all done. It did look like absolute garbage, but we averaged 58, max of 62, and a minimum of 37, with 3.9 gigs of VRAM used. But again, we only have 4, even though I have 28, and it could easily handle doing, you know, the full 8 gigs is what I wanted to do. And that's what I told in BIOS, but something somewhere was like, nope, I don't care. You only can use 4. So, in any case, it also says detected low VRAM, so it also says it's not going to be a great gaming experience, probably. And I think it says that for all of the tests, even at 720. But anyway, let's get on to 900p now. Alright, so now we put it at 900p here. And that's all we did here. Now this time, I just left it alone and let it be 39. That's what it put it to once I changed it to 900p. So that's what we'll do. Now, that might end up getting worse FPS or the same. If I recall, it's pretty much the same the whole time. I think because of the damn VRAM. It's even saying your current settings exceed the recommended settings and may lead to performance issues. Well, it's all done and we averaged 59 again, 62 max, and 52 minimum. So at least our minimum went up a little bit, but I think that 4 gigs of VRAM is still screwing us over. In fact, it even says so down at the bottom still. So unfortunately, with that VRAM limitation, I just don't think this thing can play it. And that's with 4. I think with the standard setup I got with this thing, you would only have 2. Which doesn't let you play much, besides like 8-bit games and really, 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 really old games. But anyway, let's now go see how it does in the next 720p test. Now for 720p, same settings otherwise, at least on this screen. And again, I just left it alone. I did not hit apply recommended this time. I wanted to see what it was going to do, just without everything being at 33%. 33% of 720p would look like absolute dog shit. It already looked really bad at whatever it was, at 33 for 1080p base. But anyway, now let's go see how this one does. Well, we got an average of 60 again with a maximum of 60 and a minimum of 58. So I think no matter what, that's just what it wants to do. It doesn't seem to want to really go any higher than that. I don't think it can because of the VRAM limit. So, in reality, the game would probably be a stuttering mess. This current thing. I need to figure out how to get past that stupid VRAM limitation if it's possible. I'd probably have to go to damn 64 gigs of VRAM to get past that, which is ridiculous on such a little system like that. No one should need that much. Anyway, though, on to the next system, the G15 Advantage. Well, alright, here's the settings we're going to run. 1080p, no motion blur, borderless. And on this thing I hit applied recommended, which wants to bring it to 75% of the base resolution. But other than that, it at least wants to do high settings, so that should at least be nice. I'm glad it didn't go with all low. So now, let's see how it does. Well, it looks like with those settings, we averaged 104 with a max of 123, a minimum of 42, and a low fifth of 93. Used 4.8 gigs of VRAM. There's our operating system and all that good stuff. Our GPU we used, it's got 12 gigs of VRAM, and we have 32 gigs of system RAM. And since it's not APU, it's not shared VRAM with the RAM, it's just its own, which is nice compared to the APUs. I mean, it's a gift and a curse. If they could have higher bandwidth, they would be pretty badass. Like if you get like console levels of bandwidth between the two. Anyway, though, that's besides the point. Let's move on to 1440p. Here we go on the G15 Advantage again, only this time at 1440p. And on this tab, I did the same thing, just hit apply recommended, which again wanted to just do 75%. So, and we do have frame gen still on as well. So this is like what it thinks is the best case scenario, I guess. And all these settings are still on high, which is nice. So there, with that out of the way, why don't we go run the benchmark again? Well, now, here we go. 82 average, 94 max, and 70 minimum. So we got way better minimums this time along. With a 74 fifth and 5.2 gigs of VRAM, so a little more VRAM used, which should be expected. And here's the rest of the graphic settings, all high. Basically the same thing as last time. The only difference is we did 1440p as a base this time. Everything else was exactly the same. But yeah, 1440p definitely seems the way to go for this game. Otherwise, I'm probably going to have lots of stutters. 1080p does that sometimes with these kinds of games. Anyway, on to the Alienware. Here's the settings we're going to try first on the Alienware. We'll try 1080p out first. And I hit apply recommended, which again wants to do 75, and with frame gen on, but this time it wanted to do it with the cinematic settings, which I believe are above high. I think these are the maximum settings. I could be wrong on that. We'll find out once we get to the actual game when that comes out on the 19th. But for now, let's go run a benchmark. All right, well, we averaged 87, which actually was less than the G15 Advantage, but that was on high. That one wasn't on cinematic. We got max 104, minimum 47, low 74, and this time we used 7.1 gigs of VRAM. But yeah. Still more than playable, obviously. But it definitely had some stutter, and we can tell that by the minimum. Hopefully 1440p will be a little better. It was on the Asus, but again, that was only doing high versus cinematic. So anyway, on to 1440. Here are the settings for 1440p that we're going to run. Everything on this page is the same, other than the display resolution. And then I hit apply recommended again, which gave us 75, and frame gen on, and all that stuff. Same cinematic. And cinematic seems pretty hard to run. No ray tracing, though. We'll try that out when the game comes fully out as well. I just wanted to do the recommended for most of these. But anyway, let's go see how it did. This time we averaged 74 with a maximum of 86 and a minimum of 61. Low fifth of 64, and we used 7.5 gigs of VRAM. And we definitely did a lot better on the minimum, so 1440p just seems to be a better way to go with this. I mean, it's not really 1440p since we're only doing 75% of that, but still. Higher base resolution definitely tends to do a little bit better for the minimums. If you go too low, I think the processors just probably have problems with the minimums, and then you start getting stutter. Or it could have a bunch of, what do you call it, the DirectX 12 stutter that it loves to have. But anyway, moving on. So here's the settings we're going to do. We're going to do ultra wide because the game actually seems to support it, which is nice, with no motion blur, of course, because I hate that. I hit apply recommended, which always seems to do 75 on these higher end systems. No ray tracing, though, but it did do cinematic at least. So this should go pretty well. I hope. But in any case, let's go find out. So with those settings, we averaged 110 FPS, a max of 127, a minimum of 58, so we didn't quite stay above 60 all the time, a low fifth of 94, and we used 8.1 gigs of VRAM. So obviously this game does not require too awful much VRAM, which is a nice change of pace. But then again, this is with frame gen on and all that snaz, so I'm curious to see how it does in just native once the game fully comes out, and with ray tracing to see if it's still playable. Probably not, but it's worth a try. Anyway, on to the next system. Alright, here we go with settings. Sorry about the stupid recording has started thing. I forgot when you have it on borderless, that pops up. When you have full screen, it doesn't seem to pop up anymore. Anyway, as usual, I hit apply recommended, which apparently wants to do 50% of the native, which I believe is 1080p. Could be wrong on that, but that's what I think it would be. But anyway, cinematic, just like on the secondary computer, so let's go see how it does. Well, alright, we got an average of 125, a maximum of 145, but a minimum of 43. We use 7.7 gigs of VRAM. And there we go. So it actually uses a little bit less than the AMD system did. But I think it's doing much lower resolution. It's only doing 1080p. The other one's doing 75%. So that makes perfect sense. Anyway, though, now we can go move on to the last system. Here's the settings we're going to run on the TV PC. Sorry about the stupid recording I started. I try to not to have that show up and stuff. Only really have to worry about it when it's borderless or windowed, and I keep forgetting it does that. But anyway, I just hit apply recommended just like I did on my main system, and it gave us, surprise, surprise, the exact same presets. So that's actually fun. We can just apples to apples compare this to the main PC. So let's go and see how it does. Well, now the benchmark's all done, and we average very similarly to the main PC. I think that got 126. I think that got like 144 or something, but the minimum is way less. The other one was like 43. Same amount of VRAM used. Makes sense. But yeah, still more than playable, obviously. Though I would like to have higher minimums than that, but sometimes these 3D chips, at least the older one here with the DDR4, just can't compete, I guess. So far, it seems like the 7800X 3D did the best for the cinematic minimums anyway. So now let's go wrap the video on up.
Well, alright guys, that's a wrap for the Black Myth Wukong benchmark, and it seemed like all the computers did pretty decent. At least with the recommended, they were all playable. Although I feel like if you turn frame gem off on the Steam Deck and the Ally on certain settings, it probably wouldn't be playable anymore, but we will find that out when the game actually launches. I think in like 5 days or something. Doesn't it come out on the 19th or something like that? Regardless. Then we'll go through like ray tracing and a bunch of different settings on everything. Well, the mini PCs and everything, and the Steam Deck and Ally will probably just do, our usual things we do. But for these, we'll try like ray tracing and stuff like that, native, and a bunch of different things instead of just one thing this time. But that's about all I got for you guys for this particular video. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, because I sure as hell enjoyed making it for you guys. And until the next video, peace out, guys.